Hello there. Today I'm fascinated to be taking a look at a wine from the Azores. So the Azores Islands, about 1,000 miles from Portugal in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and this is an Arinto dos Acores from Pico, and it's the 2022 vintage of that, and this is from the Azores Wine Company. This is listed as being, I presume, an indigenous grape. It's from the Rare Grapes collection, and we actually published an article on our news service a few months ago about this wine company, so I'll put a link to that in the text below. But I was delighted to be able to track down a bottle of this. So the Azores Wine Company, really the brainchild of António Maçanita, who with two business partners, a viticulturist and a finance guy, set up the Azores Wine Company to develop the potential for viticulture and winemaking there. Just to put it in context, the Azores in 2003 had 120 hectares of vines. Today they're around 1,000, so there's been quite a growth throughout the archipelago. And the Azores Wine Company have 55 hectares of their own vineyard and take grapes from a further 71 hectares. They've invested and they have a brand new winery. Cost them €3 million to build. They're making somewhere in the region of 100,000 bottles of wine a year, and their most expensive wine, not this one unfortunately, their most expensive wine sells for €240 a bottle. Now from the outset I should make it clear that although this describes itself as Arinto dos Açores, the label is very clear that this is a variety that is unrelated to the Arinto that you find on the mainland in Portugal. I've seen suggestions that it's a clone of the same variety, but actually when I researched it, it looks very much as if it's actually Social, which is a grape variety that you see particularly in Madeira. So we're talking about the island of Pico here, D.O. Pico, this is labelled as. And Pico is sometimes referred to as the Black Isle because it's a volcanic island, and the vines actually grow down into fissures in the lava streams. They grow really down by the sea. There's a lovely phrase on the label that's saying that they're planted so close to the ocean that you can hear the crabs sing. And then because they're so close to the Atlantic Ocean, the viticulturists build walls around their vineyard to protect the vines from the strong winds. You've got really good sunlight, but strong winds blowing salt as well onto the vineyard. So they need to be protected. And as a result, the vines are surrounded by walls called corallas, and they're made from this sort of dark basalt rock. Now, the volcanic soils here on Pico actually give really good acidity. That's a characteristic of volcanic soils. And thus Pico tends to make the most balanced of the wines that come from the Azores. Winemaking is very particular. The grapes are entirely hand-picked, not surprisingly if you have a vineyard where there are walls built around all the vines. You can't get a machine harvester through there. So everything's hand-picked, it's very carefully selected, picked into 25 kilogram capacity cagettes, so there is no weight of fruit compressing the fruit lower down that's being picked. So the fruit gets to the winery completely undamaged, it's pressed as whole bunches, and then fermentation takes place in what they describe as horizontal stainless steel tanks. I'm not sure what the significance of the horizontal tanks is, but the stainless steel tanks, and fermentation takes place with indigenous yeasts, and the wine is allowed to age with its fine lees. I don't have a detail of how long that lees aging goes on for. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we? I mean, it's immediately apparent that this is a lovely depth of colour. There's a real golden yellow colour there. There appears to be quite reasonable viscosity as well. It clings to the side of the glass. The wine is 12.5% alcohol. It's a dry wine, so I wouldn't expect it to be particularly viscous, so it seems to have some weight and richness. Maybe that's the lees aging helping to beef it up a little there. The aromas are rich, they're creamy, they're saline. There's a ripe peach note. There's a nice intensity, and yet you're getting a note of the ferment. There's a sort of a slight gunflint, gunpowder sort of complexity coming from the yeast fermentations there. So let's have a taste. On the palate, it's rich, it's dry, it's a touch toasty actually. and yet we know the wine's seen no oak. So that's a bottle development character there. There's a creamy texture, there's weight to this sort of ripe peach fruit, there's a fresh citric acidity, and there are mineral notes as part of that acidity as well. It's clean, quite a tart acidity. Again, towards the end of the flavours there's that sort of toasty gunpowder note overlaying the fruit. And it leaves it with a slightly saline quality at the finish. The alcohol sort of gives a little roundness to the mid-palate. And then coming beyond that, you get this mineral acidity, creamy notes, and the sort of the toasty gunpowder complexity to the finish there. Finish lasts quite well. In terms of what it makes me think of, actually it makes me think of old Verdelho from Victoria. That sort of, it's got that bottle development richness. I suspect the wine is probably quite ready to drink now, although there's no hurry to drink it up. I mean, it's got good acidity, it's got reasonable weight of fruit, so I don't see that it's going to decline in the near future. I suppose there's some notes of pear just sort of starting to come in at the finish, where there's a sort of a slight tannic phenolic structure to it. But yes, that was Arinto dos Açores 2020 from the Azores Wine Company and from the DO Pico. Thank you very much for joining us and watching the video. If you found it interesting, do please like, do consider sharing it with your friends. If you'd like to, do please sign up and follow us on YouTube. That would be fantastic. If you have any comments, please leave those in the comments box below. We'd love to hear what you think about the wine, the tastings we're doing, or anything else related to this. Most importantly, however, I do hope you'll join us for another tasting in the very near future. Thanks again. Bye for now.